that I have Olivier and Daniel presenting on. So let's just jump into it. Who goes first?
Yeah, Olivier.
Okay.
Hey, Daniel.
Hi.
All right. Well, I'm gonna show. I'm gonna share my browser. All right. So I wanted to talk about field groups today. Let's see. I want to see what I'm doing. All right. First of all, I will go over what you can do with field overrides and how does it work. I want to show you an example with the content component, and I want to show you an example also with the contact component. I'm going to actually jump right in. I just want to start with making you understand how fields, custom fields are overridden in Joomla. So this is a little article. You will be able to go through that article later on if you want to. Daniel has been kind enough to create this website and let it to make it available for everyone who wants to play with the layouts and the overrides we've been working on today. So first of all, I wanted to say that there are three ways. I mean, there are three parts in getting a custom field overridden. When we're showing on the screen, when you want a custom field to show on the front end, you actually call first a file who's called render.php, and it's located in the under layouts fields. I'm going to explain later on where you find them. Then you have another piece that calls the field render.php, and that's the orange part in the graphic I have here. In the text, the label and the value of the field. And then you do have the field itself that renders its value. So there are three steps in getting a field showing on your website. And each component in Joomla can have its own way of rendering fields. Right now in Joomla, in the core, you only have the contact component that does that. All the other components like the user, the content, web links, they all use the generic way of showing fields on the screen. So what happens in the backend when you have overrides? If you look at the little yellow snippets I have here, the Joomla looks at first if there is an override for the component you get the field from. So if you're in an article, for example, you are in the context of the content component. It will look for the override if you have any of the fields render.php. Then if that override doesn't exist, it will look into the component itself to see if there is a way of rendering fields. If it doesn't, it goes back to the template and looks if there is an override of the com fields, which is the default of rendering fields. It goes to the com fields component and looks into if there is an override for fields that render.php. And then if it doesn't find any, it ends up using the layout of the fields rendering that you can find under com fields, which is the default. So it's a little complicated. You can go through that article later on. I'm trying to go a little fast, but you can.
Good question.
Excuse me,
Olivier.
Yes.
These render.php files, are they there by default, or do you have to add them in?
No, you have a default one. It is this is under com fields. The component called com fields.
Okay, so like the first one of the four is there, but the other three are not?
No, the first one is an override you will be making. The second one is the actual rendering of the fields, but in the component you're using. In Joomla right now, only contact has one. The third one, the first step would be to look if there is an override of the default in the templates you're using. And if there is not, it takes the default, which is component fields layout fields. That
Okay, so the fourth one is the
default.
the one that's all we can always count on that one being.
Yes, you always get that one no matter
Okay.
what.
Okay, thank you.
If there is nothing else before that.
So Olivier, just real quick, if the Stephen team, if you see template/template name, that means if you create an override, the override for that field exists within your template itself. So if you have a template called my template hello, within there, that's the structure. If you create an override, which we've done on some of our templates, we have overrides which are in that HTML folder, layouts, com fields, and then it will take that.
Yeah, I'm going to show you actually exactly how it is done in the backend, so you can see it live. But this is the rendering that happens in the background, and then there's only one way of getting to choose. There's no way to choose in the backend which layout you would like to use. It's automatic. You could create a copy of the render.php file, call it something else, and then use that as your rendering file. But it can only done at this time through the code. I mean, through the fields helper that you would have to use in some content component or some component you would be creating yourself. There's also one way of getting to be able to choose which layout you would want to use if it's not the render.php. Again, the render.php is the default. If you call one something that called group.php that contains your override of that file, you could access it if you use the content plugin fields. The content plugin fields allows you to add fields to an article, for example, through a simple syntax like field group, and you would be able to give the field group ID and then the layout you're using for that group. But again, I'm going to go through that later. But I wanted to make sure that I cover a few ways of doing these renderings. Once you have all the renderings for all fields taken care of, you also have the rendering of each field, which means we look through all fields, and then when we get to the individual one, we use the label and the value of that field. And then this is a separate layout. Again, you go through the same thing. You look for overrides first in a component. If it doesn't find any, it goes to the component itself to find the render file. If it doesn't find it, it goes to the override of the default, which is com field render.php. And if it doesn't find any override, it goes to the default file, which is component com fields layout fields render.php. And actually in the backend, when you go to a field, you can see, I'm going to show you, if you go to a content field, if you go to the right page, it will be better. If you go to a content field, you have in the options tab, you have a layout field here, a layout parameter where you can set the parameter you have. You can see the layout you have created as an override, and it tells you where the override is coming from. Then in the content plugin, where you can use a syntax, you can use field with the ID and then have a field show up in anywhere in your article, for example, and you can select the layout you want to use for that field. It's a little theoretical, all that, but I want to go over and see how it works actually in Joomla. So you want to create, so let's say you want to create an override. You go to System, Site Template Styles, go to the file tree of the template. You have here the layout folder, and you have the create override page. What you can see on the right hand side is all the layouts that are available, and there's one called com fields and field, and one called fields, and you have the same for the contact component. These are the only two components that you can change and add create an override for it. So for example, I click on com fields, which will create an entry in my HTML tree layouts com fields, and I have my file here render.php, which is exactly the original file which I can change and create an override for it. The same thing with the field here, and you can do the same with com contact. And the nice thing also about it is you can also, there's no rendering file for com content, but you can create a directory. You're in layout, and you can say, okay, I want to create a rendering just for a content component. So I'm going to create com content. And then now I'm here, and I can actually create the same rendering as I have here. I can say, okay, I still have to go back to manage folders. I'm in the com content, and I want to create a field folder. Oh, did I do it? No, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Com content fields create. Is it closed? So now in layouts, you have a com content fields folder, and then you can inside create a new file. Fields render PHP create. Now, anytime I will want to create, I will show a field in the front end coming from the com content component, which is like an article or a category. It will use that file for rendering. I need to put something in it. I'm going to copy the code I have in the com fields component, which is here. All right. And now I do have my override for the com content. So now all the fields that are going to show on the front end are going to be seen through that file. So if you want to know how it works, like for example, I want to specify then with CSS later on, I want to target this field. I want to say, for example, content override. Let's see, you can call it like that. Now with CSS, you have a nice way of being able to target just that rendering. So what happens in the front end? I have my article that shows up with all the fields that I've created. Here I've created one field, categories, which is a list field, which is not a list field, it's subform. I have a priority, which is a list field. I have an office extension, a text field, and I have a website, a URL, and I have a text for the position ahead of the department, and I have an extension for some additional information. I have a summary, but how did I put that together in the backend? I go back, I close my overrides, I go to content, fields. So I have all my fields laid out here. What is happening? I also have created field groups. I have a field group.
Olivier, can I just want to hold up 1 second.
Mhm.
Can you just show on inspect the content override class that ended up getting put in
Oh,
because
yeah,
of what you did with render?
Yeah.
And I think that may help. So keep in mind, folks, the render was copied for what's normally done. He then put one piece of code in that override and he called it content dash override.
Can
So
you see it?
maybe you have a class for it. See how that gets, that's using the render that's sitting inside of the template. So that's using the override. So for me, that's like, oh, okay, I see what you did. So
So
thank
now
you.
every time you show those fields, it will go through that override. So you won't get the default anymore. You get the file that you created yourself.
So render.php is the PHP for the group, not the, I don't want to use the word group, but all of the fields, not individual fields.
No, it's all the fields. When you
It's
go
at the higher level.
under fields and you create the render.php, that's for all the groups, for the whole group. If you go to the field that render.php, it goes only for that part of the field, priority, medium, for example. So you have
Thank
two
you.
ways.
So you can override one field, but you don't have to, if you override one field, you don't have to override
You
all.
don't have to override the other. It will use the default.
So in other words, it will take the styling from the original, let's say,
Yes.
for anything that's hasn't been overridden.
Yes.
Okay.
See here, I created field groups. I created the author, a reviewer, and in my fields, I arranged them in a way where I want, okay, in the author group, I want the office extension, I want the website, I want the position that corresponds to the author. And I want also to have the extension of the reviewer. But here, when I'm in the front end, I have no notion of what is what. You can see. And that's something that's missing in Joomla. You have no group. Your fields are not grouped. They are all together in one flat list. So I've created an override that adds the groups, the grouping of the fields. And you will be able to, I want to go through the code so to make it, so that don't make it too difficult to understand, but you'll be able to go through it later on yourself. I have in my layouts, I created, let's say I will just change my override. That's the override. So that's the override I have created. I'm going to add it to my contents component, so only this one can use it. And I'm going to copy content override. Okay, so what I've done in this override is that I have looked through all the fields, because this is information we have. Each field that shows on the screen has the information in which group ID it's part of and what is the group title. So I can get that information. loop through all the fields and have them show the group title. So in my rendering, what I've done, I've changed it. Now what I see is I have my category and priority fields that are not part of a group. And now I have a group called author. And I have all the fields that are part of that group. And I have my reviewer group, which shows the extension through that group, from that group. So what happens in the background, you have a UL that creates an LI field group. And in each field group, I have another UL that lists all the groups, all the fields. Sorry. So that's something that's missing in Joomla, I think. And then
That's very cool, Olivier.
so like not now, it's you have an easy way of customizing that, because thank you the CSS behind it. If you go to the user.css in your template, I have commented something out. So I'm going to put, I have done a little styling.
That's a lot of styling. I wouldn't call that a little, but we can say it's
Just because I wanted to do something a little fancy.
Great.
It's just to show you that you can change something that's raw like that, and then you can change it and have, you can have the fields show without the dots, and then each group can be like this. And I've created even if you go through, I think, I don't remember if I added here. Yes, if I was gonna add this, okay, I mean layouts, content, fields, my render, and I call it my render.php, and I add that I want something that looks more like for grids. I could have something that show differently. So you could have extensions showing like this. I mean, there's no limit in how you want to present your stuff then. So you have the group, every field is grouped this way. And then I want, if I go to my article, I have added, see, you see that there's a fee group here. I could then specify in my fee group, which layout I want to use. Like I was saying earlier, this is how you use the syntax, and it's actually adding a syntax to your article is very easy. You just go through the CMS content and you say field, and then when you're here, either you choose the field itself or you choose the group, and then when you click on author, for example, here, you get directly the proper syntax with the proper ID for the field, for the group field.
Olivier, would you be able to share, perhaps after the meeting, the CSS and the render PHP that you did?
Oh yes, everybody is going to be able to access the website and go and either grab the code from here, from that website, or go to the PR I've created at GitHub, which has all the files listed also. So there's going to be two ways of doing that, of getting the information.
I can include a link to the PR request in the Joomla user group of New Jersey webpage, so that way people could get to it easily.
Yeah, there's on the front page, you have here the PR right here. the address. Actually, PRs get promoted or get attention if the people vote for them. So if you vote for the PR, there's better chance to get that included in the next version of Joomla. I've done the same with the contact component. Right now, I have a contact that has a field around the email, and I have a subform with diplomas, and a phone number, phone extension, and all that. As you see here, the subform is showing weirdly. In the backend, what's happening is that I have my contact, Jane Doe, and I created field groups, office, and I've a certain number of fields, which 3 of them are only for the subform I'm going to use. So I have a title, like I have a subform that I want to show diplomas with. So I have a title of the diploma, I have the issuer, where it was given, and then what date. So I created my title, and I said, okay, this title is going to be subform only. It's going to be only used in my subform, and my diploma subform contains the title, the issuer, and the date. And you see, when I go to the front end, I have something a little weird. It doesn't present very well. And then if I go and I inspect the code behind it, I have something that's not good. I have, for each row of for each diploma, I have a LI. Inside that LI, I have a field entry, and then I get DTDD, which breaks the HTML markup, because you should have a DL somewhere, a DL that englobes the DT and the DD. Not only that, but the DL shouldn't be included in an LI. It's not good practice. I think it's a bad practice to have these two together. So that's a bug that's in Joomla 4. I suspect it's also in Joomla 3, unless the repeatable field has been showing differently. I didn't look through it, but so what you can do.
Hold on 1 second. Eddie, did you have a question?
No, I'm wondering if that's because Joomla 3 up until a point they were showing custom fields as DLs, and then they switched it over to ULs. Is this could be an artifact of that?
The thing is, from 3 to 4, the rendering, the default rendering has been changed from DLs, definition lists, to lists, ULs. For the contact component, nothing has changed. They kept the old way of doing the contact component. So we still have the DLs and the DTs and DDs in the contact component. So here, the thing is, the subform renders each field individually. And so you get the way it is done in render.php of the field. I'm going to my template. I'm going to show you. I apologize if it's a little complicated. So you have the contact component, and you have the rendering that happens. I mean, if you get the default without having an override, you would get the render.php that comes from field, and that's what shows in the subform. And what's happening is that the field is a DD, and the DL is in the fields renderer. That's where the DL is at. So when you dissociate the two, then the DL is missing. Oh, where is my DL here? Forgot. That's always like that when you look for something. Yeah, you have that's my group. Well, yeah, you have the DL here that does the field container. That's where my DL is at. But when I'm in a subform, the DL is not there because I'm not calling that file. I'm calling just the field file. That's why there's an issue here. Let's say now, and the same thing here, you have no notion of groups. So I've modified the code. So if I call this one render. And if I called this one rename render PHP. Okay, that in the front end, I already have fixed something. I have added my group. Where's my group? Did I do it right? Yeah, it's not my group. Something is wrong. Yeah, didn't do it right. Let's do it again. I went too fast. Now I have my grouping. See, I have my office group, and I have phone number and phone extension that is in my group. So now I fix one thing, is that I've added the groups to it. What I've proposed in my PR for the changes to in Joomla is to add a layout for the fields, so that layout can be used in the contact component for subforms. So I have in my contact component, my field, I have created an additional layout that has a different layout that doesn't have DT or DDs. So if I use that layout instead, and then make it available to all the subform fields, just gonna take a second. I've assigned a different layout that doesn't have the DTs and EDs, and I refresh. Now I have a properly formed document with what's inside the subform is actually a field value and a field entry, so that you get what's supposed to be done with subform is that you have a field, comma, another field, comma, another field, and you have as many as data you have.
So did you create a pull request for this as well? 2 separate ones?
It's all in the same one.
Okay.
I can show you the pull request is explaining what the problem is, what you get now as a content as a regular standard field rendering, and what you get in a contact field rendering, and then shows you what happens once the PR is applied, and it also adds a file, an extra layout for the contact component where you can select from for use in your subforms. So
Thank
it's a little
you.
complicated. I'm sorry.
It was fantastic. I am so excited about the groups, and I don't know if Mark is here. I remember talking to Mark about this. I think we were in Spain, and all I kept talking about is I need to do this with groupings. This is what I wanted for a long time. So thank you so much for putting this concept out.
Like we talked about, it's portable back to Joomla 3 if you need to create those overrides for yourself, if you want to use them already, there's no problem. The layouts are pretty similar, so it'd be easy to port that out.
Now, a quick Joomla 4 question. If you use Cassiopeia, I'm not sure, maybe Mark would know. So if you're using Cassiopeia and you create these overrides in the Cassiopeia template, and then you upgrade Joomla, I'm assuming because those overrides don't exist, when you upgrade Joomla, they will not get overwritten.
No.
By the
Anything that's
upgrades.
any override is not overridden.
Because it's in your HTML folder, so it's separate. So that's, now some of us are going to be going to Cassiopeia using that as a template instead of a separate framework. You want to just be very wary of updates. So
and if you use a different template, then you can copy and paste your files to your new template.
of course, yes. All right. Any questions before we go over to Daniel, besides a huge thank you? And I put in the chat the links to the site that Olivier was going to, so that way you could actually see the code, see the pull request, and see the sample lines of code. Any questions? Fantastic, thank you. And now we're going to move over to our Frenchman number 2, Daniel. So what do you have to show us today, Daniel? Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Bonjour. Hi,
Bonjour.
everyone. Oh, you speak French. Good. Si, si. I'm going to show you something much more basic compared to Olivier's work, which is your presentation is awesome, Olivier. Fantastic. I think it would be very useful for everyone if, yes, we can have a first group in Joomla 4 in the next release. Okay, we are back here. So here you have the access to the backend of this seat. So no problem, you can go and use it. But if you break the seat, I don't repair it. Okay. So I assume that you are a professional and you won't break the seat, please. Okay, to create this overrides, because there is not only one, I've created 2. In fact, there is 2 knowledge base, and we see the difference. You need to create first a parent category and some child's category in this first category. You must have of course content in these categories, in the articles, and create the menu item. So for the first knowledge base here, you have to create a list category menu item, and for second one, only an article is enough. So the difference between I'm going to show you after the 2 difference, but for the first one here, you have to create an override, 2 overrides in content, and one for the module of smart search is called Finder, and you may also have as optional create the override for the Finder, because if you want to custom the results of the search of the knowledge base. And I've also add a specific framework here in user CSS files. We'll show after. So the difference, you have here the first knowledge base here. And so this is the module Finder, and this is the categories. And if you go inside first, you have here the article in this subcategory. And then after, if you click, you have access to the article. So the difference between the second one, you just access here the article directly from the front page of the knowledge base. So it's up to you to choose which one you want to use in your project. It depends. I think this one you have on the screen now is for I would say small and medium knowledge base, and the first one is for the medium and large knowledge base because the content needs to be more structured. So now for the first one, write an article. I need to find the article I've created about this one. I've wrote tutorial.
It looks very nice, by the way. I don't know if anyone else noticed how cool it looks. And also it's responsive. So if you're looking at the Joomla knowledge base with the articles, when you shrink it down, it goes right into, it stacks it automatically.
Mm.
It looks very nice.
Yeah, it looks very professional.
Thank you.
Mm.
So this is the tutorial I wrote, but I need to write it again because it was based on the first version of Joomla 4, and the code have been changed since the first release. So the code is not exactly the same as today. So, but here you have all the explanation to create the same thing, and you have all the details, all the explanation, all the code here. So just feel free to copy, to share, to, of course, use and modify if you need to customize, to adapt, because we can go further for such feature on the site. Like I think maybe I would add something with content or custom fields or link to submit article or to ask questions. If visitors have questions are not listed in in your knowledge base. So here you have all the explanation. If need, you just have to copy, and otherwise it's just here in the template.
Daniel, could we have that link for that page that you just went to? I know it's
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah.
your
Yeah,
website.
of course. Okay, no problem. I will share here.
But it's within the blog, I think.
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Thank
You're
you.
And, okay, and this is the. So you have for the first one, the files are here. So if you want to copy, you just open the site. You have the full access as administrator, so you can copy and paste on your project, no problem. There's no there is no copyright here. It's open source, of course. So feel free to share and to use as you need. And if you have questions, of course, contact me, and I will help you as much as possible. If you want to get this kind of feature in your project. The last point I wanted to show you is here. I've added in so in Joomla 4, if you want to create a custom CSS files, it's called user CSS, like it was in Joomla 3 and previously. So in Protostar it was user CSS 2. So I've added here another framework, yes, to get more options for styling the rendering a better layout. And of course, and if you have also, if you need more question, if you have more question about overrides, I have also here some resource may be useful for everyone, especially this article. Sharing. Yeah, okay. This is an article on my website where you have also a few resources very useful to create how to create overrides, and a few tips if you want to add the image of the category, if you want to display the number of category, if you want so if it's more like post-it, and I collect here ideas and very useful, some snippets codes for my project, but it's only these codes are for Joomla 3, but I'm currently working for the same thing for Joomla 4, so, but it's not yet online, so be patient for the same thing on Joomla 4. If you have questions, feel free, ask, and I'd be glad to answer you.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. It was quick, it was fast, okay, but if you have question and if you need help, no problem.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Yes,
can go
go
to
ahead.
to Daniel's website. He has a lot of a lot of things like that are very nice overrides that mostly for Joomla 3 right now, but he's working on Joomla 4. So I'm sure he's gonna have great stuff very soon.
So I will put links to all of this on the Joomla Users Group of New Jersey website. I will also save this video and post it to the YouTube channel for Joomla User Group of New Jersey. Thank you very much, both to Daniel and Olivier. So good job.
Merci,
Thank you.
merci, merci.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.